The evening sky over New York was painted with streaks of gold and violet as the city hummed with life. Cars honked, streetlights blinked awake, and somewhere inside a cozy Italian restaurant tucked between skyscrapers, a young woman sat nervously staring at her phone. Her name was Lila Morgan, and she was about to go on a blind date, her first in 2 years. Her palms were sweaty, her heart racing, and her thoughts, well, they weren't kind. Why did I even agree to this? She muttered under her breath, checking her reflection in the mirror beside the table. Her soft curls framed her round face, and the deep blue dress she'd chosen was elegant, though she couldn't stop adjusting it every few minutes. The waiter smiled kindly at her as he poured water into her glass. "Waiting for someone, miss?" "Yes," she replied softly. "A blind date." He nodded knowingly. "Good luck." She smiled faintly, but her nerves didn't ease. Because in her head, she could still hear the cruel voices of the past, the snickers, the whispers, the comments she pretended not to hear. Greater than, "She's sweet, but no one's gonna marry a fat girl. If she lost some weight, she might actually have a chance." They came from classmates, co-workers, sometimes even her own relatives. She had learned to laugh them off, but deep inside, each word cut a little deeper. Tonight, though, she wanted to change that. She wanted to believe there were still people who saw beyond appearances, who saw the soul before the size. Her phone buzzed. A message appeared. Unknown number. "Hey, it's me, Daniel. I'm parking now. Be there in 2. Lila's stomach twisted with nerves. She'd heard his voice once over a brief phone call, but that was it. Her best friend, Mia, had set them up, claiming Daniel was different. She prayed that was true. 2 minutes later, the door opened, and in walked a tall man in a crisp gray suit. He had kind brown eyes and a calm confidence that seemed effortless. His smile was warm, not arrogant, and when he spotted her, his expression brightened even more. "Lila?" he asked, stepping closer. She stood up awkwardly, almost knocking over her water glass. "Yes, hi, Daniel," he chuckled, steadying the glass. "That's me. Sorry I'm late. Parking in this city should be an Olympic sport." That broke the ice. She laughed, and he smiled wider, clearly pleased to see her relax. As they sat down, Daniel took off his jacket, revealing a simple white shirt beneath. "I hope you like Italian. I wasn't sure what kind of food you prefer." "It's perfect," she said, grateful. The waiter returned, took their orders, and left them with a basket of breadsticks. For a while, conversation flowed easily. Daniel was charming but humble, funny but never boastful. He asked questions, real ones, about her interests, her work as a graphic designer, her passion for painting. And yet, Lila couldn't help but wait for the shift, the moment when his eyes would flicker downward, his interest would fade, and his tone would change. It always happened. It didn't. Instead, he said, "You've got this glow when you talk about your art. You really love what you do, huh?" She blushed. "Yeah, I guess I do. That's rare," he said softly. "Most people I meet just work. You actually live what you love." His words disarmed her. She looked at him curiously. "What about you? What do you do?" He smiled faintly. "I run a tech company. It's small but growing." "Oh, nice. What kind?" "Software solutions. We design systems for businesses." "Boring stuff, really." She laughed. "You don't sound bored." "Well," he said, leaning back, "I like solving problems. That's my thing." They talked for nearly 2 hours, about life, dreams, family, fears. For the first time in a long time, Lila forgot to worry about how she looked. But then, when the waiter brought dessert, she noticed 2 women sitting a few tables away. They were staring, whispering, giggling. Her smile faltered. She could hear their words even over the restaurant's music. Greater than, "Look at her. He's way out of her league. No one marries a fat girl, not unless it's a joke." Lila froze. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her fork. She wanted to disappear. Daniel noticed immediately. "Hey, you okay?" She forced a smile. "Yeah, I think I should go." He frowned. "Did I say something wrong?" "No," she whispered. "You've been wonderful. It's just, people like me don't get people like you." He blinked, genuinely confused. "People like you know," she said bitterly. "Fat, not pretty, not the kind of woman men bring home. Everyone says it." For a moment, silence filled the air. Daniel looked at her, not with pity, but with something much deeper. Then he said softly, "Who told you that?" She swallowed hard. "Everyone." He leaned forward. "Then they've all been wrong." Lila looked up, tears threatening her eyes. Listen, he said, his tone firm but gentle. I don't care what anyone says. Beauty isn't measured in inches or scales. It's in the way someone laughs, the way they care, the way they make others feel seen. She blinked rapidly, caught off guard by his sincerity. You know what I saw tonight? He continued. A woman who's smart, creative, kind, and real. And if anyone can't see that, it's their loss. The women at the other table laughed again. Daniel turned to look at them, not angrily, just calmly, and said loud enough for them to hear, by the way, I think I just met the most beautiful woman in this restaurant. The laughter stopped instantly. Lila's cheeks flushed, her eyes wide. Daniel, he smiled. What? It's true. For the first time in years, she didn't feel small. She felt seen. A week later, they met again. And then again. Dinner dates turned into weekend walks, laughter over coffee, movie nights, and quiet talks on park benches. Daniel never once made her feel self-conscious. He encouraged her to chase her dreams, even helped her set up an online art store for her paintings. Months passed, and their connection only deepened. But one evening, when they attended a charity gala together, Lila's insecurities returned. As they walked in, flashes of cameras went off. Daniel was, after all, a well-known CEO. People greeted him left and right, many with curious glances toward Lila. A woman in a glittering red dress, tall, slim, perfect, approached them. Daniel, it's been ages, she said, hugging him lightly. And who's this? This is Lila, Daniel said proudly. My girlfriend. The woman's smile faltered just slightly before she said, oh, how lovely. Then she leaned closer to Lila and whispered, you're brave, you know. Most people wouldn't come here unless they fit the part. Lila froze. Daniel caught the look on her face and immediately asked, everything okay? The woman smiled sweetly. Of course, just girl talk. But Daniel's expression darkened slightly. He knew what that meant. He turned to Lila and said quietly, dance with me. Before she could answer, he took her hand and led her to the dance floor. As the music swelled, he whispered, you look incredible tonight. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She tried to smile, but a tear slipped down her cheek. He brushed it away gently. Lila, do you trust me? She nodded. Then let's prove them all wrong. He spun her around as the spotlight caught them, his hand firm around hers. People turned to look, not out of judgment, but because something beautiful was happening. The confidence in Daniel's eyes, the emotion in Lila's face, it was magnetic. For the first time, Lila didn't care who was watching. She laughed, twirling in his arms, the music carrying her fears away. At the end of the song, applause erupted. Daniel smiled, kissed her forehead, and whispered, see. They don't matter. We do. A year later, the same restaurant where they first met was filled with soft lights and music once again. Daniel stood near the corner table, fidgeting slightly. Lila walked in, wearing a flowing lavender dress, unaware of what was about to happen. As soon as she sat down, Daniel knelt beside her, holding a small velvet box. Lila Morgan, he said, voice trembling with emotion, the world told you no one would marry a fat girl. But I'm here to tell you, I don't want anyone else. You've changed my life in ways I can't describe. You taught me love isn't about perfection, it's about connection. Her breath caught as he opened the box. Inside was a simple diamond ring, elegant, timeless. Let's prove them all wrong, he said softly. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded, whispering, yes. The entire restaurant erupted in applause. The same waiter who'd served them that first night clapped with tears in his eyes. As Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, Lila looked up at him and smiled through her tears. For the first time, she said, I finally feel enough. He smiled, pulling her close. You've always been enough. Months later, their wedding was held in a garden filled with wildflowers and laughter. Friends and family gathered as Lila walked down the aisle, radiant in her gown. The whispers that once haunted her were gone, replaced by admiration and joy. When she reached Daniel, he took her hands and whispered, told you we'd prove them wrong. She smiled, tears glistening. No, Daniel, we proved that love doesn't care about size, it just cares about heart. The minister smiled warmly. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. As they kissed, the crowd cheered. And somewhere in that moment, Lila knew, every cruel word, every doubt, every tear had led her here. To love, to freedom, to a future where she was more than enough. Years later, Lila sat in her art studio, now running a successful business selling her paintings worldwide. Her husband, Daniel, still made her coffee every morning before work. A young woman once messaged her online, saying, "I'm plus-sized, and I feel like no one will ever love me. How did you do it?" Lila smiled and replied, "Start by loving yourself first. The right one will see the beauty you've had all along." She looked up at a framed photo on the wall, her and Daniel on their wedding day, laughing, eyes full of joy. And beneath it, a quote Daniel had given her on their anniversary. "They said no one marries a fat girl. But I married the most beautiful woman in the world."